All right, welcome back to Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. I'm your host Caleb.
Hi, I'm Seth. I talked Star Wars with this man.
You looked excited.
Yeah, it's
It-
not gonna last.
Is it just because of where we are in the Star Wars timeline? Are you happy that we're here finally? Is that what's going on?
Oh, yeah. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see how it goes.
So what is it then?
I don't know. I just feel like most of the time when we start this, I'm slumped over. So I figured I would. Just
You wanted
raise my
to,
hands
yeah,
a
you
little
wanted to
bit.
change it up a bit.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's giving me the end of keeping things on this channel. It's reminding me of how me and Zach would do Jag Arcade, and we try to do the freeze frame at the end of the episodes. It's giving me that. But yeah, so we talk Star Wars as well as whatever we feel like on this show. There's a couple things I do want to talk about that are not Star Wars related. First off, I've been watching a lot of TV.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I've been watching is the new season of The Boys, which has been very, very good so far.
You know, for as much as I hate superheroes, I haven't watched The Boys.
Ironically, you have to also enjoy superhero things to enjoy you can dislike. I feel like people who enjoy superhero stuff still enjoy The Boys because it's not. At least the show, I should say, because the comic is very different. The show is still very much a love letter to the idea of superheroes, but also being realistic with what would happen in this type of environment with superheroes. Whereas, and it's also critical of things. There are criticisms of how movies and TV show have kind of monopolized superheroes, right?
Yeah.
But the comic is very much I hate superheroes comics, and it really just which is weird because I feel like to do good parody it has to be something you care about, in my opinion. You can't just be doing it out of spite, I feel like.
I think this is a conversation we've had in the car a couple of times where it's Invincible. That's another show.
Once again, though, it's done out of love of that genre.
It deconstructs and then reconstructs.
Yeah, because at least there, even the comic is done out of love for what he's writing about. Whereas, I forget the creator of The Boys, but he hates superhero comics, and he made it very that's why the show has drifted. If you've read the comics and you've watched the show, it's departed so much.
I've heard that it gets wildly different.
And it's because the showrunner, the Supernatural showrunner, who's the showrunner for the show for The Boys, he cares about them. You can tell he cares about the character development and stuff and wants to do something with it rather than just be a shock value thing. There's shock value in it still. Don't get me wrong, especially this last episode. The last episode definitely was to the point where I was reading this morning, Forbes wrote an article going, did The Boys go too far? And I don't agree with that article. I do think they went pretty far, but I don't think they went oh no.
I think from what I have seen of The Boys,
yeah,
it's plenty gory, and I'm of the opinion, you know me, I like Berserk. I like a lot of things that include intense violence.
But also, that stuff has to be balanced with the storytelling.
Yeah.
And Berserk has that.
Berserk has that.
And The Boys has that.
Yeah.
At least the show.
And so, from what I've seen, I think it's used a lot of the time as like you said, for shock value in The Boys. And sometimes that can both enhance and hurt a story.
It's all about the story around that and whether or not the shock value does anything to tell that story, which I think this past episode it still does because of things that are happening to certain characters. And
you can throw up a spoiler warning.
I could, but it's still I don't know, it's still this week. I don't know. You know what? Yeah, spoiler warning for The Boys this past week's episode. Which was episode 6, I believe. Yeah, it's episode 6. So big spoilers for that. I'll leave this up. If you want to mute us, I'll remove it once we're done talking about the spoiler. It's also a spoiler for episode 5. Huey's going through a lot.
Mm.
His dad he had to kill his dad
Oh, okay.
because his dad was already dying. He was a vegetable. They gave him Compound V, the short term Compound V,
Mm-hmm.
to bring him back, only for him to start not having full memory, having some memory loss, as well as going on an accidental killing spree because he could walk through people,
Mm.
and so he would pop up in the middle of people um and so he had to put him down. And then this past episode 6, he's like, oh, I'm like, Annie's like, are you sure you want to go on a mission? He's like, I'm good, let's do this. Yeah. So while the shock value does not inherently, the thing that happens to him, which is that he meets his hero from when he was a kid. Because when he was a kid, Tech Knight was his favorite hero.
All right.
Tech Knight locks him up and apparently is a very deviant sex pervert who will put holes in people just to add more holes for that. Yeah.
Okay.
Trigger warning.
Tryptophobia warning.
And
The
so
worst kind.
And so, like, on top, so, like, meeting his hero from childhood, as well as, like, within the, like, 3 days of having killed his dad. Or, yeah.
Damn.
So it's a lot for him.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the episode, and that's why I think the Forbes article is wrong, because I think it misses I think they ignore that scene at the end of the episode where he breaks down and he's like, I miss my dad, and he immediately breaks down because he is not okay. Because that's a lot of trauma to go through within maybe a week of events, right?
Yeah.
If we're being really generous with how long it takes for them to do things in The Boys.
Mm.
And so, yeah. And that's why I disagree with that. Anyways, the thing I was actually going to talk about was not about The Boys itself. It was about whenever I watch The Boys, I have the fully paid for Amazon.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The no ads, right? But I still get one ad at the beginning because they're like, oh, this is brought to you by T-Mobile, and then after that, no ads. And they do the Suits T-Mobile ad, which I love. I started to really love Suits because we talked about it when I binge watched it. But the main two guys have not done a lot since that show ended, right? So but Netflix made that show popular again because it was on Netflix, which was the same time I was watching it. And so obviously these two now are back kind of in the spotlight.
Is it the public defender or corporate law one?
It's the corporate law one.
Okay.
But it's both, like, the two main actors. So it's the one who.
Okay.
So it's the one who knows who cheated, on the faked the LSATs and technically never actually got all of his stuff. But, like, anyways, the main point, the ad is so dumb. They don't even do anything in it. Why are you bringing these high profile actors just to go yeah and then, like, flub the line on purpose and not actually even do the ad read? Really, you end up still having a narrator do the actual ad read. It's dumb. It's an awful ad. And it honestly makes me think maybe those two don't know how to act, and maybe that's why they haven't been in anything since. Except I do know they can act, because I've watched Suits.
We've cleverly replaced these actors with robots. We're testing them out via a T-Mobile ad. The public will never suspect.
Some fun news
Mm-hmm.
for me during this week. I kind of got up to watching some old school movies. I rewatched 10 Things I Hate About You. Good 90s Heath Ledger film. It's basically Taming of the Shrew,
Okay.
but it's set in a high school.
All right.
And it's got a young Joseph Gordon-Levitt. You would recognize him if I show the face. I know how you are. You do not. I know. I already know. I have to show a picture. You know who Heath Ledger is. I imagine
Yes,
though.
I
Without.
know who Heath Ledger is. Oh.
Yeah.
I've seen you before. I don't.
He's been
know
in
from
a lot.
where, but,
The one that he was in Inception, 500 Days of
Okay.
Summer. He was in The Dark Knight Rises. He's the guy that everybody was like, oh, he's gonna become Robin, and then they don't do anything with him other than kind of set him up to be the next Batman at the end because Bruce Wayne retires at the end of that film because he fakes his death. He was also in Treasure Planet. He's Jim. Good classic Disney film that more people should watch. But yeah, he's in that and 10 Things I Hate About You. Good film. I also rewatched Freaky Friday. Or no, sorry. Not Freaky Friday. The other Lindsay Lohan remake. Parent Trap.
Mm.
She did. That's interesting though. Lindsay Lohan during that era did 2 remakes of classic Disney films. Because she did Parent Trap, which was a remake of an older film. And then she also did Freaky Friday, which once again was also a remake. Both good remakes, but no, I rewatched Parent Trap. Holds up. Rewatched Ricky Bobby. Ricky Bobby. Does not entirely hold up.
Mm.
There are a few jokes that probably wouldn't fly as much today regarding the LGBTQ community. A lot of jokes about Sacha Baron Cohen's character being gay in that film. Although some of it is punching up at the rednecks and not at the fact that he's gay. Some of those jokes are at the rednecks' expense where they're like they just don't understand the culture. So it's more it's there's a little jokes here and there that are work. There's a Highlander joke in that film. And I was watching it and I'm like, I didn't remember this, and I recorded it. I took a clip of it and sent it to Pixie and to Britt because I was like, oh, I didn't realize this joke was here. Pixie said it's me coded because it's Sacha Baron Cohen's character going, I want you to be my rival and to like the reason I'm in America is so you can beat me so I can retire. And Will Ferrell goes, I feel like I'm in Highlander right now. And Sasha goes, what is this Highlander? And he goes, it's only the best movie ever made. And he goes, really? And he's like, yeah, it won an Academy Award for what? For being the best movie ever. And so yeah, Pixie was like, that's you. I feel called out, but it feels appropriate.
Me and with my repressed memories of decapitations.
Speaking
There were a lot of movies that I watched as a child that were fucking brutal.
So speaking of Highlander on the fun news, I did find a piece of media that I thought was going to be really difficult for me to find. The $200 audio drama narrated by Adrian Paul that Big Finish Productions did in the early 2000s. And they're more well known now for like their Doctor Who audio dramas. But apparently, we talked about this kind of. They lost their license, so now they can't sell it still. But some people do resells of the actual CDs. Season 1, you have to buy each episode, because there were 4 episodes per season. Season 1, you have to buy each episode individually, and it's like almost $50 per episode. So that's like $200 right there almost. And maybe it's $100, maybe it's like $25 per, but still, because I think it comes out to $200 when you buy the whole thing, because the second season you can buy it as just one set, and that's $100 on resale markets. I did find digital copies finally of the entire thing, and so I now have all 8 episodes, and so I can finally listen to those whenever I continue through our rewatch of the series with you and Britt, and I'm trying to get Pixie through it now as well.
All right.
And then
Joke from our movie nights of like villains stepping menacingly into frame.
yeah, Britt's got that one.
Yeah, then we've got me in Supernatural being like, "Yep, that's normal human behavior right there." Anytime some obviously monstrous bullshit is happening.
Yep. I think there was another Highlander thing. I can't remember now. Still can't find the Highlander 3000. That one's gonna be a rough one to get a hold of. Oh, I remember what it was. I watched a video today.
Yeah.
About Highlander 3.
Okay.
I am so mad because we almost had a great soundtrack for Highlander 3. And there's no actual explained reason for why we didn't. So Highlander 1, well known for having a all-Queen soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
Highlander 3 was this close to having a Guns N' Roses soundtrack.
Oh, damn.
The reason why that we know of is Mario Van Peebles is the villain, right?
Mm-hmm.
He plays the villain. And the reason that they brought Mario Van Peebles in, I learned from the video, is because Christopher Lambert actually worked with him before. And so Christopher Lambert was like, hey, I worked with this guy. I think he's going to be really good for this film. And so they were like, oh, yeah. And it turns out that was actually a good choice because apparently the sword fights, the reason they're so good in 3, because the sword fights are really good in 3. I think that's one of the stronger parts of 3. 3 is funky, but 3 has really good sword fights. I will give it that.
I feel like maybe this is a weird comparison. I feel like when it comes to sword fights and how abilities work, Highlander is very much abides by the rules that I do for like making games and stories, where I'm like, I don't give a fuck what the rest of the plot was about. The fight and how powers and abilities work is the most important part.
Yeah,
I can figure out the rest later.
But like Highlander 3 sword fights are another level.
Really good.
And so it turns out the reason they're so good is because Mario and Christopher would just keep egging each other, and they were improvising a lot of that, like the headbutt in one of those fights, completely improvised, and they were just pushing each other. And so it was a case of, I'm going to outfight you. No, I am. And so because of that, it became so good. And they also, the reason the direction is kind of good in that is much like Highlander 1. Highlander 1 was directed by a music video director. Makes sense. You get a music video director for a film that's very music video-esque in quality. Like, it feels like it works for Highlander 1, right? 2, they did not go that route. I forget who they got for the director for 2. But 3, they get another music video director for 3. They're like, oh, let's kind of go back to our roots, get a music video director. 3's directed pretty well. Like, once again, my problems are more with Connor being a himbo and kind of not realizing things sooner.
Oh, the car crash.
Yeah, the car crash, immortal stuff.
I
he's a himbo.
I let that one slide because it's plausible that something like that can happen.
Yeah.
So that one's not really on him.
No, and also like the other stuff is like the other stuff that I kind of am iffy on is it's basically the Force Awakens of Highlander, where they're like, Highlander 2, we tried to do something different, nobody liked it, so let's kind of just remake the first film in a way without like we're gonna take some of the main blocks of 1. So like we got our prostitute scene, we've got our you know, like there's certain scenes that when you watch 1 and 3, if you watch them back to back, you're like, oh, that's a scene that's just ripped out of 1 that they kind of rewrote. And so like that, and then like the cop stuff kind of bring back the idea that the cops are after him thinking he's the killer. And so like they bring back a lot of that. And so yeah, 3 is essentially the Force Awakens of Highlander. And there's nothing wrong with that. It was a necessary step. Much how I say with Force Awakens, I think the Force Awakens was a necessary step to bring Star Wars fans back after the prequels. And Highlander 3 was we need to bring Highlander fans back. Although at that point the TV show was already kind of doing that job because the first 2 seasons of the show had already aired at that or had been airing at that point. Anyways, yeah. So the reason that we don't have a Guns N' Roses soundtrack, Axl Rose apparently did not like that Mario Van Peebles was in the film, and Axl said, "If you recast him, I will do the music." And they were like, "No."
They all went. I imagine Christopher Lambert, Mario Van Peebles, and the director are all kind of like on the phone talking with like Guns N' Roses and Axl Rose, and they go and they hear that and they look at each other. They go, "Never mind, we'll figure it out," and hang up.
I will say the soundtrack in 3 is not that great. It's not memorable. Like, it's not memorable. But also, it wasn't trying to be. 2 has some memorable songs, ironically
And
enough.
Fucking in a grimy alleyway, but moving on.
Yeah. 3 sex scene is okay. It's definitely a step up from 2. But yeah, so that's what I learned about Highlander 3 today. I learned that we almost had a Guns N' Roses soundtrack, and for some reason Axl Rose doesn't like Mario Van Peebles. We don't know why. To this day, he has not said why.
Remember when you threw that baseball into my yard 40 years ago?
That's another film I rewatched recently, was The Sandlot. I rewatched that this week. Sandlot's pretty good still. That still holds up. That's a classic. Good summer film.
You know what's a movie that I watched a lot while living with my dad over in Mississippi?
Sandlot 2?
No, Secondhand Lions.
Oh, okay.
Which is a film that, like, it's weird, but not bad.
I'll let you talk about what you've been up to this week, because I've been kind of running the conversation a bit, and I know you probably have stuff you want to talk about.
Yeah, a couple of things. Speedrun this. Still going through Elden Ring, Shadows of the Erdtree. I found Mesmer. He's pretty strong. Almost killed him a couple times earlier today, but he's a weird snake man who's halfway through his, like, have you ever been attacked by 7 snakes at once? And I'm like, well, not yet.
I don't want to be, but I guess I'm gonna be.
Too bad. I'm like, so I got my buddy Hornsent. He's there. He's one of the summons, and he's like, "Hey, Mesmer, I'm here to kill you for, that genocide you committed because of your mom." I'm like, alright, yeah, that seems like a good reason to bring him in. I don't care why you're here, but I appreciate the help.
Yeah.
And I got a bunch of other things. I'm going through other people's quest lines because I like seeing what the NPCs do. Sometimes I'll look up things because I'm like, I need help because I don't know where to go.
Yeah.
But most of the time I try not to.
I honestly don't blame people for doing that,
yeah,
honestly.
because it's fucking hard and complicated.
Yeah, games are hard sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need that extra something.
Yeah, got a new great sword because I like my great swords. With me, it's either rifles, great swords, or revolvers.
Yeah.
When it comes to gameplay weapons. So yeah, going through Elden Ring, meandering about, getting lost sometimes because it's like the map does help, but once you go into like a catacomb or a cave, it's like, hope you can figure this out.
Yeah.
Sky and like the rest of the boys, like Cyberpunk 2077, and it's a setting that I'm not entirely unfamiliar with, but I'm like,
more so, I'm assuming, from the anime than the
anime than the game. I wouldn't mind playing the game. I remember back in the day when Ethan first got it, he was like, yeah, the story is really good. I just wish the game wouldn't crash so much.
Which, thankfully, there have been so many fixes that that's not an issue. The problem is you wouldn't get to enjoy Phantom Liberty
because I need a PS5 in order for that to work.
Even though I felt so confident that it was on PS4, but
the base game is.
Yeah, I know the base game is.
That's been updated pretty much, but Phantom Liberty requires PS5.
Yeah. Probably just because of some of the updates
Yeah.
graphically and like to clean it up.
Uh,
And in a way, Phantom Liberty is almost a semi-sequel because that's kind of one of the things that while the main game was kind of rushed a bit,
mhm.
that is something we can say like in favor of CD Projekt Red is when they do expansions, they do really good expansions, like to the point that they're almost sequels, like Witcher 3 Blood and Wine, like
Yeah.
a prime example of like exemplary DLC expansion.
Uh,
It's the old day of expansions where it's like Baldur's Gate like 2 back in the day, that type of expansion where an expansion meant something. It wasn't just a 10-hour thing that you could want to get through pretty easily.
but what that kind of leads into
Yeah.
is I was like, well, it's based off of a tabletop game, right?
Oh, are
So
you
why
trying to
don't I
look
go
into
and
it?
Look for that. So I look around and I'm like, well, what can I?
There's actually a recent
Dude.
reproduction of it.
I couldn't find 2077,
I don't think it's 2077. I forget what it's
but
called.
what I did find and acquired is Cyberpunk 2020.
Oh yeah.
You know, that far-flung future. So me and Sky spent a good time of learning the basics of character creation.
Yeah.
I learned it. Sky had a much easier time because I was able to send him like a character sheet so he could actually, and he had a program that allowed him to modify and change things.
Yeah.
I did not have that. What I have is a memo pad and a pen. So I wrote down as much of the character sheet as I could.
Yeah, so I found it on Roll20. It's Cyberpunk Red is what the current like rendition is called. Oh look, they have a Edge Runners tie-in.
Ooh,
That's cool. But it's yeah, so it's a little mission kit apparently. This is just the rule books that I'm looking at. But yeah, so I guess that's what you gotta look into is Red. I've seen it on what's the name of that website that does really good Humble Bundle. I've seen it on Humble Bundle a couple times because they'll do like the classic RPG deals as well, which is how I got our Highlander one. So yeah, it's usually in their like books deals. Anyways.
So I spent on the 4th of July.
Yeah, I was gonna ask 4th of July.
Me and Sky spent most of like before evening. We got done making characters at around 10 o'clock in the morning when we started at like 11 p.m. the night before. We did it. It just took us forever. It took me forever to write shit down.
Yeah.
But that's just because I had to physically write it down. Character creation is actually really fun in that one because of how it works. But also, like, it's very important to, like, make sure you know what your abilities do because certain ones will affect others. And it uses a D10 system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious how Red is done.
Yeah, because I have no idea.
But yeah,
But yeah, I learned the basics of like character creation for Cyberpunk 2020.
Oh, here it is. Yikes! I'm pretty sure you could get it cheaper on a Roll20. It's $60 on the official Talsorian store. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could get that cheaper. I guess it's even Amazon. It's about $60. Maybe there's a lot in it for the physical copy.
Maybe.
Because it is them essentially rebooting Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Let me check again how it was in the marketplace here. But yeah, I'll talk about my 4th of July real quick while I'm pulling that up. So it was my dad's birthday also. So I didn't do much. I kind of chilled at home for most of it. Yeah, it's only $40 on Roll20. Um, and so I chilled at home until later on, having dinner with the family and had some burgers and pretty much didn't do much. Watched the new, because my dad wanted to watch it. We watched the new. Oh, I'm trying to remember the name.
What genre?
It's like it's the fourth film in a. I know it. It's got Beverly Hills Cops.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we watched Axel F. Funny movie. If you like Beverly Hills Cops, it doesn't change the formula drastically. Like it's literally what you would expect a Beverly Hills Cops film to be. It's very formulaic, which I think works in its favor because a lot of people are just gonna want a Beverly Hills Cops film, right? They're just gonna go, I want Eddie Murphy being funny and causing chaos in the streets of Beverly Hills, and that's what you get.
We read your file, Eddie Murphy.
So I enjoyed it. It was funny. It was a good time. It was a good chill time. That was essentially my fourth. Let's get into things. There's no news this week.
Yeah.
I did want to do something first that I realized that we should do. The Star Wars Oreos have been out for a minute, and my family got some hands on it. We do not have the dark side one, just the light side. And we've gotten only the light side twice. This is actually our second pack of Star Wars Oreos to have. I figured we could do a try on the channel. I've enjoyed them so far, so I'm basically gonna let you get to try one. I'll take one. No milk, sorry.
That's fine.
The blue cream is fine. It's a little sweeter than the normal Oreo cream. It feels like. It also feels like there's like a popping thing in it.
I'm trying to think about when the last time I even ate an Oreo was.
So if you can find them, and you like Oreos, they're Oreos.
Yeah.
Like, they're good. Like, there isn't really a lot that you can say that's different about an Oreo.
Yeah. It's an Oreo cookie.
So yeah. Other thing, before we start getting into the actual reviews. I made a mistake last week. So we talked about Volume 1 of High Republic Phase 3, but I forgot that Issue 5 is included with that. Like, because I usually compile the issues together. I don't give the actual proper trade paperback to them, so I compiled the issues 1 through 4, but then forgot Issue 5 is included with that until I looked. During this week, I was looking at stuff on Wikipedia, and it was like, oh, because I was like trying to plan when things come out. So I looked at the High Republic page, and I was like, oh, Issue 5 is included in that. So I was like, Seth, we have to read Issue 5. And so we're just going to do a kind of quick discussion on it.
Yep.
We get more Skier.
We have more Skier.
We figure out the stuff he's been going through. Tesseric appears, my boy.
Yay.
He's looking a little run down, but he's hanging in.
You Jedi bastards are lost causes, but don't worry, because I enjoy lost causes.
I can save your asses too with the Sith glove.
You ever seen something like this, Jedi?
Sarad and Tarek are still going through it.
Yeah.
What did I say? I posted like
They do manage to fight off their illusions, though.
Yeah, because they're running into like the other like, um, what's the word that they use for them? But there's a word for them. The Children of the Storm. That's it.
Mm.
Like they're being chased by the Children of the Storm, and so they're still dealing with that. Um, and one of them can create illusions. They also find a child one, if I remember, like in this one.
There is a child at the end of this.
Yeah. So they find a child who,
Skier has been violently protecting.
yeah. And we learn, we know because we know from last time that Skier's the one who beat up our Jedi friends. Oh yes, Sarah's the one dealing with the dark side issues, while Tarek is kind of still dealing with the slump. But Tarek manages to kind of get out of his slump because he's the one that kind of breaks the illusion first.
Mm-hmm.
Because they try to trick him into thinking that the Nameless are about to get him, and he kind of is like, wait, that's not happening.
Yeah. Wait, if the Nameless were actually here,
It would be way worse than this.
yeah.
And so
Like, this kind of sucks, but like it would be awful if they were here.
And so he gets out of it, and he finds a new little friend, little like monkey bird thing.
Meanwhile, Sarada's being an asshole.
But yeah, so that I don't know if that changes your idea of your enjoyment of Volume 1 now that you kind of have a little more of that, because it did kind of just end at issue 4, but issue 5 gives us a chance to have some breathing room to end Volume 1 on, while also still giving us a cliffhanger with the child that is a mystery now. And so, with that extra content, I enjoy it more. Lorna getting more character growth.
Hits Skier on the back of the head with a rock because she thinks Skier's gonna fucking kill Keeve.
Yeah.
And Keeve's like, wait, no, don't do that. Bonk.
But yeah, I just wanted to correct that because we should have talked about that last week. So there we go. Now for our main topics, because we got 3 things to talk about.
Yeah.
Spoiler warnings for Jedi of the Republic Mace Windu. Or Mace Windu Jedi of the Republic. No, it is Jedi of the Republic Mace Windu. I don't know why on the front they do it that way, when on the spine it actually says it the correct way. Then we got Star Wars Adventures, The Clone Wars Battle Tales.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Clone Wars movie. So spoilers for all that.
Yep.
We're going to kind of start in order. We'll go with Jedi of the Republic Mace Windu first and kind of give our brief thoughts on that first.
Once again, my opinion
on Mace Windu. I was wondering how your Mace Windu.
It has not been elevated again. It's at a steady one.
Okay, I was wondering how your Mace Windu opinions would shift after reading this, because once again we get more into his mindset with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we see the struggle. I think Jedi of the Republic Mace Windu really shows the struggle the Jedi have with being involved with the Clone Wars at the start.
Yeah.
Where they're like, how much should we be getting involved? Also, all this Jedi loss of life kind of sucks. And like, are we meant to fight? But also at the same time, the discussion leads to, well, we're not fighting for selfish intent, right? This isn't us trying to domineer the galaxy. Yeah. This is, we are fighting for the sake of peace, which is sometimes the only option to get peace, right? And that's kind of the solution by the end of the Mace Windu Jedi of the Republic run, because we get a lot of different opinions regarding that throughout this, because we get Maces, we get Kit Fistos, we get Yodas, even, and we get Prosit Dibs, who's a character that's introduced in here, as well as Risa, who's a young knight introduced in here, newly knighted. As we saw in Brotherhood, a lot of Jedi Padawans getting knighted early. And so they go on a mission. It's supposed to be a mission to stop the Separatists from moving in. And we learn why the Separatists are there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because this world only gets... I think they said they get like 1 day...
They get an hour of sunlight a year.
Yeah, an hour of sunlight a year. And because of that, all the fauna on the planet have to like do their photosynthesis process in a weird way where they collect as much energy as they can from the sun while it's hitting them and then store it for the year.
Mm.
And so that creates a lot of energy that the Separatists want to use for powering up their droids and their factories and all that. They want to use that for machinery, right? They're like, oh, well, that's a awesome way to hold to store battery life. Well, let's get a hold of that. And so, of course, in the process, that is causing damage for the people who live there, the natives of the planet. And so Mace and crew have to go in on that. But then we learn that Mace and Kit may have already known that it was more than just, oh, stop the Separatists. It was a case of, oh, this is much bigger and could be a bigger deal for the Republic if they got their hands on it too. And of course, Mace and Kit aren't really trying to get their hands on it, but it can be viewed that way because optics, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way Prosit views it. Prosit views this as the Jedi are quickly becoming corrupt, even though currently there's no evidence to that. There really isn't. And so Prosit calls Mace some names and even gives a right hook to him, which is impressive when you realize Prosit is blind.
Yeah.
The man also has a lot of blind jokes.
Yes, he does.
That's
so many of them.
And so, like, I kind of vaguely remember being at first on Prosit's side the first time I read this, back when it was coming out. But then, like, as I've gotten older and as I've reread it and seen the path that these characters take, because Prosit does return later and other stuff. Seeing the path they go, I start to realize, he's right in theory, but in practice, not so much, right? Like, he's trying to call out hypocrisy, meanwhile, he himself is being the hypocrite.
Yeah.
And so it's just like... And he's like, I don't... Like...
The thing is, when, like, Prosit confronts Mace about it, is... Mace doesn't deny his accusations.
No, like, Mace is like, yeah, sure, this is, like... Of course, it's a war, what do you expect?
Like, he gets punched in the face and
Yeah.
he's still calm about it. It's not until Prosit's like, I'm gonna fucking kill you.
Yeah, then
that Mace is like, okay, you know what?
Yeah, then they have their lightsaber duel, and Mace kicks Prosit's ass.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Rissa and Kit Fisto are off on the side, and Rissa's like, shouldn't we be trying to stop them? And Kit Fisto is smiling the whole time.
Kit's like, this is their problem.
He's like, they'll sort it out.
Yeah, he's like, Mace knows what he's doing. And we learn that Mace does, in fact, know what he's doing in this. Like, this isn't a case where anything Mace is doing should not be in doubt. Like, Mace is doubting himself, but that's more of, like, character development purposes. That's not... And I think we're seeing a Mace that... Because usually we don't see that side of Mace. We see a very confident, like, he knows what he's doing most of the time. Ironically, I think this fits very well with the Living Force novel. I think that Mace Windu is very... we see the same Mace Windu, right? Whereas if you watch, like, the movies, it feels a little different. But this information adds on top of our knowledge of the movie Mace Windu.
Yeah. Like, sometimes I forget because...
That Mace is just a man.
that he's just a guy.
Yeah.
And I've come more and more to realize that he's just a very by-the-book, like, Jedi.
Yeah, he's by the book, but he's also willing to bend if it's the right thing, right? Because that's, like, the whole thing with, like, Palpatine in Episode 3, where he's like, yeah, I'll kill this man because it's the right thing to do, because it's literally evil incarnate. and there's no way that a court system would not find him. Like, a court system would get him out because he paid them,
Yeah.
and so, like,
He has to go.
yeah. So like Mace is by the book until like the bending point,
Yeah.
and then he's willing to bend if he needs to, because we have to it's the whole if you're too stiff you'll break sort of idea, and so Mace is not that. He appears that on the surface,
Yeah.
but when you start to learn the type of man he actually is, you start to realize, okay, he's willing to bend the rules for the moral high ground to do the right thing.
Yeah. Also, there was one panel that confused the fuck out of me, and I'm still somewhat confused about. So, the main antagonist for Mace Windu.
Oh yeah, it's ADW Ford, which is a bounty. Not even a bounty. He's a mercenary droid,
Yeah.
which is one of our friends' favorites, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
He never confirmed or denied that one, even though I tagged him in the Discord chat. But from what I remember when this was coming out, this was one of his favorite characters.
Yeah, and so
he loves droids, so it makes sense.
And so going through it, so at the end, after ADW4 and Windu confront each other for the final time, ADW4 shoots off his head.
Oh, when he's trying to do the escape?
Yeah.
Did you not understand that Mace was, like, force collapsing it?
That's what I was like. I was like, did you... So I see that his head fly off, and then I was like... And then the head is gone, and I was like, so did it escape, or did Windu just say, crunch?
Nope. He crunched, because if you look at the panels... I have the book in front of us.
Yeah.
He does the little reach up as if he's trying to slow it down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he does a little closed fist as if he's force crushing.
Yeah.
And then there's just a big explosion, which implies it blew up when...
Okay.
From the pressure. Yeah, no, you're meant to take away, yes, Mace Windu...
So that is the correct interpretation.
Mace Windu killed ADW4, yes.
Yeah, okay. Because I was like, damn. He really did him like that.
But yeah, and then so yeah, Prosit lives, but they make him do library duty,
which is very funny.
Because he's like, kill me, do it, prove I'm right, kill me, and they're like, nah,
no,
because it's not.
Also, it's funny to think that like. He's working in the library and he's blind.
I mean, I assume in the Star Wars universe they have the sight what's the term, the sight impaired or visually impaired. Thank you. Like, I assume there's visually impaired like things in the Star Wars universe.
It's just very funny that they put him in the library.
It's more for like reorganizing, cleanup duty, that type of shit. You know, stuff that helps Shikasa Nu do the side stuff. But yeah, so that's Jedi of the Republic Mace Windu. I think it really works as a character study, as well as just a study of what the Jedi mindset is at the start of the war. Because this is like the most this. I think Brotherhood is the only thing that takes place maybe. I'd have to look again if it's before or after this, but it's like right in that same
kind of time frame.
Yeah, like within the first couple weeks of, like we see at the beginning of the comic. It's like it's when they're loading the clones in their ships that we see at the end of Attack of the Clones. It's like pretty much not long after the Yoda and Obi-Wan victory you say speech. Like it's almost like I would say within the same week span of that.
Yeah.
Maybe even only a few hours after that. And so
also a touching moment that is not as, it's a little bit sad due to eventual events where Mace is like, Kit Fisto, there's no one I'd rather have at my side. Well, you got your wish.
Yeah.
He'll be at your side until he dies, so...
Yeah. And Risa's an interesting character. I would
Yeah.
like to see more of her, because I'm surprised. I'm surprised we haven't seen a lot of her since. Because I mean, this was always meant to be just a mini series, right? Although I think the idea was that they were going to do more Jedi. Like, I think it was going to be Jedi of the Republic, enter name here,
Yeah.
and that was going to kind of be an ongoing in that way. But each one would be like a 5-issue mini series, right? And so, like, I'm surprised they didn't do more. Like, I guess it didn't sell well. I was getting each issue, so I don't know. Yeah, she's only appeared in this, so I would like to see Risa come back. Personally, just because I feel like, but also at the same time, maybe not, because once again, it's that discussion of we've dug ourselves into the Clone Wars era enough. So,
I think in terms of like what she does represent, like the newly freshly minted Jedi that's being deployed this generation.
Yeah,
of Jedi.
yeah, it's the Ahsoka's generation,
Yeah.
right? Ahsoka and I guess a little bit more Barris's generation than Ahsoka's, but it's within that same span.
Generational timing is weird.
Yeah, almost hitting Anakin's generation, but not quite. Matt Owens has only done Jedi of the Republic Mace Windu, so interesting. I was gonna say Matt Owens, get on it, but if he's only done this, then I can't really ask him to get on it. Star Wars Story Group, get some people to get Risa involved. No, I know that's not how the story group works. But yeah, I like it. I'd give it a pretty strong 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm cool with that one.
Because like it tells the story it needs to, does really good character development and character exploration, has some really strong themes, and then it gets in and gets out. It tells its story and
for does not like being called Commander Chief any of those words by
the droid. I kind of like ADW Force, like no, like kind of he's like in a weird way he's more like to General Grievous than he would like to admit. He was a good little foil to Mace in this, because once again hitting the themes, it's a man who's doing things because it's the right thing, versus somebody who's only doing it for the profit, not even for a cause. Like he's like, I don't care about the separatist cause. The
cause is money.
Yeah. So it's an interesting foil for Mace, who is doing it for a religious and just cause. So that makes an interesting foil.
What does a droid spend money on?
Upgrades.
Oil baths, probably.
Oil baths, upgrades, more weapons.
Okay, that makes sense.
I mean, you could ask the same question about IG-88.
What do you spend your money on? I need to know for tax reasons.
IG-88 uses it for his therapist after his encounter with Vader.
Yeah. He's like, IG-88. He's like, and then he put the gun to my head. Do you know how odd of a sensation that is? I thought I had him cornered. No, it's the opposite.
Yeah, I hope IG-88 has a very good therapist.
I don't think he needs one at the moment.
But let's get into Battletales next.
Yes.
So Battletales is very much like the rest of Star Wars Adventures, Hyperspace Stories, because once again, I've talked about this. So Hyperspace Stories is the Dark Horse version of what IDW, who's the publisher of this, was doing, which is Star Wars Adventure. It's Star Wars Adventures, which is every issue would be a encapsulated a short story sort of thing, essentially, where you get a little side story. And so Battletales is that for the Clone Wars. And it's just a this one they published as a collection, as a graphic novel, rather than each individual. But it is chaptered out in a way that could very much have been single issues if they had decided to release it that way. They just didn't. Actually, no. Correction. They did originally publish them in issues. It says that at the beginning. I'm dumb.
It happens, man. I'm dumb most of the time, so
Yeah.
don't worry. You'll learn to live with it.
So basically, the main story is on the planet Hisson. We kind of, because you have our framing device throughout the 5 issues, and it's basically the clones and the Jedi, specifically the 501st led by Anakin, Obi-Wan's 212th, and I forget the number for Plo Koon's.
The wolf pack.
Yeah, it's the Wolf Pack. I forget
Their actual number.
Yeah. But yeah, it's now I'm gonna look it up because it's gonna bug me. 104th. So it's those 3 battalions, and so we get Commander Wolf, Captain Rex, and Commander Cody as our main like leads for along with our Jedi. But we also get some other clone leads where we get to meet some other ones like Hardcase, and we see early versions of Waxer and Boiler, who are great clones in the TV show that we get to see more of. Because this kind of keeps the idea of what the show is. Because it even, like, when at the start it says before the Battle of Christophsis, so it's like giving you a little, like, and it has like that Clone Wars branded like imagery, like the way that they do Star Wars, the Clone Wars logo. It has that branded logo on it. Very specific font. Do not steal. Sort of thing. And so we get a fun set of short stories. We get one that's kind of like about Anakin not leaving clones behind, because like the idea is still that since the war is still early on, this is when clones are like, oh, we're not important to them. We're just we're just meant to be fodder. We're cannon fodder. And so we get a story about Anakin saving one, because the Jedi inherently still view these clones as individuals. Count Dooku and Ventress show up in the framing device to kind of mess up the day, and once again we get another flashback, because Plo basically tells them, "Hey, there's some hostages. We need you to go deal with that and save them." And so the other clone, and he told that to Commander Wolf, and the other clones are like, "You really think the Jedi would trust us with running our own operation?" And we get another short story where it's like, well, that's exactly what Plo Koon would do.
Yeah, and so we're gonna go do that.
Yeah, and so we get a short story that's them fighting Tambor and kind of using some trickery to like send a different set of parties after them. Oh, I thought that would work. Let's see. Oh.
What is it?
I was hoping I was doing some new stuff for whenever we do ads, but I added a new for free for our followers. I added a new emote on Twitch, and it's little boo. It's a party boo. Oh, I'll show how it should have shown up. Or did it delete it? Hold on. There it is. It's a little tiny, the guy. I need to get a bigger version. Anyways. It's just Boo with a hat and present. Party Boo. Anyways.
Yeah. It's a collection of like stories from the clones.
Yeah, I'm kind of trying to like give an idea of what each one is, just to give a rundown. And so like the next one is like a story about when they were like held in an imprisonment, because they were like, oh, the Jedi won't. Once again, it's a situation of Jedi won't save us. What do we do? And it's like, no, we have a story about the last time we were in a prison camp, and Obi-Wan and Commander Cody freed a bunch of people, freed our brothers, and that's where we get a Waxer and Boil story. I do not remember I don't remember Waxer having that. If you want to take an episode 1, we actually did do an episode of that. We did that this season. Our opinions on that can be found in episode. What's the episode of the podcast it was in? I don't even remember.
I don't know. You're the one that makes the schedules, man.
Yeah, it's in a previous episode. Episode 5 of the season. So season 3, episode 5 was our Phantom Menace discussion. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't remember Waxer having that goofy stash. Okay, he did. Oh, Boyle has it. Sorry. Waxer's the bald one. He kind of does, I guess. It looks weirder in this art style, I guess. I don't know. He's got like that 70s kind of like. I don't want to say what kind of 70s work I think Boyle would have been doing based on that stash. It's a porno stash. It's a porno stash. But yeah, we get Waxer and Boyle in that story.
Yeah.
And then the penultimate one for this run of comics is a story about a new clone, Heater. That's a new clone. Mm-hmm. And it's about going AWOL, which and like kind of deserting. And we learn that Heater is now very much adamantly against it.
Yeah.
And we get a short story from Heater about why, because apparently he was once a deserter, and they basically got a crew of like deserter clones, and made them do a mission, and we're like, hey, if you desert, it doesn't matter, because either way things will go down. We'll either get rid of you or we get the objective that we're sending you for.
Yeah. So either way,
and they make it through it.
I will say I like Heater's
design.
Yeah.
His little scarred face.
Scarred face, the mohawk, and the dumb little scarf cape.
I like his design too. I like it. I like the design of the crew that for the deserter crew. I like Racetrack, and I like Sync. I think Racetrack's the one that's got the bandage, right? But yeah, I like that crew. I would like to see more of that crew, but also once again, Clone Wars. And so the final issue is them finally getting things together, and
they're like, we're gonna fuck with Grievous on this ice planet.
Yeah, once again talking about being captured. Yeah. And so they talk about the time that Grievous captured them, and they kind of helped the locals of this ice planet by building a bridge and then being able to destroy it so that way Grievous couldn't. Because Grievous wanted it rebuilt for his troops to cross, but they distracted him in a way where he couldn't use it, and then they destroyed it after they got the creatures back where they needed to be. Mm-hmm. And then we go back to the framing device where Anakin and Plo and everybody kicks the Separatist ass and calls it a day.
And for context, they are fighting in the fucking trenches in this jungle, and they are like, man, holding this position is definitely up there on fuck this.
This one's not as strong as Jedi for me.
Yeah.
I'd give it a 7.5. It's good. It's quick read. It's just, I mean, and I like each of the short stories, but as a collection, I don't know.
I think, and I don't know if it's just because I'm in a bit of like a tired, don't care mood, or maybe it's because I like had a weird way of reading these because I just kind of like flipped through them. Mm-hmm. And while I did read them and all of them, I did it like within the span of 3 days.
Yeah, and in the case of this one, in the case of this one, it's very much I like this story. I didn't like this story as much.
So, while I think the stories each deserve like their own number, overall, I think that it's a 6.
Okay. Strong opinions here today.
Yeah, but I think that's just because I'm in a
Yeah,
in a mood.
yeah, and
Of,
so
like
if we
tired
talked about it
content.
maybe another day, maybe it changes. Maybe when we do our like timeline episode, you'll be like, actually, I thought about this more and I actually like it.
Yeah.
And I like I said, I like it. It's just not as strong.
Like, the Deserter story is my favorite out of all of those.
Yeah, the Deserter Squad is great. So let's get into the movie. I feel like, do we really need to explain the plot of the Clone Wars movie? I feel like most people know the plot of the Clone Wars movie.
Yeah, probably not. I will say.
I'll give a brief.
Yeah, go ahead.
Republic and Separatists both want to get in the hyperspace lanes in Jabba's in Hutt space, and so Jabba, whose son has has been kidnapped, goes, "Hey, whoever can get him first, I'll grant access, and we'll have a peace treaty."
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also sending my own men to go look for him because, hey, if I get him, then I don't have to make a peace treaty with anybody. And so we follow Anakin, Obi-Wan, and we meet Ahsoka, who becomes Anakin's Padawan during this.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to look for them. Really, Anakin and Ahsoka are looking for Rada.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Obi-Wan's dealing more with the negotiation side of it.
Yeah.
And Dooku, on the other hand, has sent Ventress to mess up Anakin and Ahsoka's plans. And Count Dooku is on his way to mess up Obi-Wan's part.
Mm-hmm.
I think I told the story in the best way.
Yep.
So that's the premise of the movie. I'll let you, because I've shared my thoughts before on this channel for this movie, and in fact I rewatched it just before we went live because I was like, I wonder what I thought about back in 2016 when we reviewed this the last time.
So,
because this is the second time on the channel that this has been reviewed, and the second time in the show. But it was before we changed the format, because season 1 was more of a movie news format that also did a review at the end of each episode, whereas this one is kind of the opposite. We do reviews with news, maybe depending on if news comes out.
This movie is a goddamn speed run. And you presumably had to watch it this week, so you know exactly what I mean.
I rewatched it.
There are so many, like... there are a lot of action set pieces.
Oh yeah, it's definitely action heavy, and so of course I talked about 4 years ago when we did it on the first season. I talked about why it's this way, and we talked about it last night too, about like this is really just 4 episodes of the show.
Mm-hmm. Hello.
Hey.
Yeah.
So if you cut them up between the 4, like if you cut them up into 22-minute segments,
they'd be fine.
You'd start to realize, oh, this is the pacing that this is going at.
Yeah.
And then because it was 30-minute format is actually 25 minutes on a TV show.
Yeah.
On like regular TV,
including commercials.
Because you gotta include commercial, yeah. And so this is really 4 episodes of the show put into a movie.
Yep.
And my thoughts on that have not changed between 2016 and now, when we last talked about it. In that,
when did this damn thing come
out? Oh, this came out in 2008.
Oh, yeah. It definitely feels and looks like it came out in 2008 at certain points.
And so, I will say something that we talked about last night. The animation is not that bad, actually, for 2008.
No, it's not. But it's very much like, compared to where we are now, they're in a very different...
Well, it's also because I talked about it last night. They were learning the new
Mhm.
technology because this is this is computer generated, and while they still did a lot of by hand stuff for the initial like drawing of it, it is computer generated. You can tell,
Yeah.
especially on the Battle Christophsis part. Like that's definitely the most heavily computer generated part, I would say. Um, Also has the dumbest way that a clone has ever died. Punch a droid. Ah! Dead. Um,
There are some odd like
but I think
choices for what is showed.
I think though that was to get a point. I think, in a weird way, it's continuing the idea that the Clone Wars was an actual like nitty gritty war,
Mhm.
even though it's in this like clean, almost clean sci-fi
Yeah,
sort of.
like
Because like
there,
it gets brutal.
it does. It gets really brutal. But what I mean when I say like there's some odd choices, I mean that there are some odd still frames
Oh yeah.
where like I think it in the Battle of Christophsis, like when Obi-Wan's like, "Don't worry, I'll handle the droids," while Anakin and Ahsoka are sneaking off, and he's like, "All right, Cody, take your men and go."
Yeah, get behind the get away from the shield.
Yeah, and he goes, he takes out a droid, and there's some more coming up. But there's a weird moment where it just stops. Nothing else is on it. It's like from a weird downward angle, and it's just his face.
I really love the speaking of that scene, I really love the Obi-Wan stalling for time. I love the negotiating surrender, which is a war crime, by the way.
Yeah. It's
Obi-Wan-
a good thing Star Wars does not actually have war
They
crimes
have-
in it
they have-
until like
they-
after Yavin 4.
Yeah, at least in Legends. I don't know if they have like conventions before then. I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, and once again, the Yavin one is like Legends, so we don't even really know
Yeah.
in canon what is considered a war crime, but pretty sure that would be considered a war crime, probably. But not that it matters, because the Jedi end
Yeah,
up gone by the end of the Clone
I
Wars.
was thinking about it. I'm like, well,
Because who are they going to punish? The Republic no longer exists as an entity.
I was thinking about it at the time. I'm like, from Obi-Wan's perspective, he knows. Yeah, so it is a war crime, but I'm like,
Yeah,
he
because
has no guarantee that Anakin and Ahsoka will be successful. at
no, but
this.
he knows he's doing it to stall
Yeah.
and not to actually surrender, which makes it a war crime.
Yeah. Anakin and Ahsoka decide to Metal Gear past all of the fucking droids.
Which is easy because they don't even have to move the box. They just stay in the box and then they march past them and they're like, okay. But yeah, so it's
I
basically
will say another like annoying part in the movie is like the dialogue between Anakin and Ahsoka goes from like there are wild tonal swings between the two of them. Like I get that the point is to drive home that like Anakin is a new
master.
and Ahsoka is a new Padawan.
Yeah,
But-
like they're learning their dynamic. They don't have it
Yeah.
quite like it's kind of like how Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan kind of didn't know how to relate to each other off the bat.
Mm-hmm. Except the dialogue, like I said, this movie is a speed run. So it's very funny, like, even halfway through where Anakin is telling Ahsoka, like, hey, do this or do that, and she's kind of trying to do both.
Yeah.
Like, keep close to me, he said, while fucking speeding away as fast as possible. Also, Dooku got so lucky catching Anakin in that moment with the most incriminating footage he could. Like, unprecedentedly lucky. I'm like, this is not a great plan.
So this was I'm looking at behind the scenes on this because we're gonna talk about my thought of it being a movie.
Mm-hmm.
It should have been a TV movie. This works better as a TV movie. Like if you're gonna keep it as a movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a TV movie because it's only 2 hours.
Yeah.
And so it's basically like it's combining 4 episodes. So you make it a TV movie that leads the audience into getting excited about the Clone Wars, as a because this came out before the show, right? Not long before the show. So this comes out, and then this is to hype up the show. The problem with it being a theatrical release, which is what this was, not really theatrical looking. And that's even with them, apparently, I'm reading behind the scenes on development. It was a George decision to make it a theatrical film. Apparently, he had watched some of the scenes on a big screen, on a big theatrical screen, and was like, "This should be in the movies." Apparently, it was almost an afterthought, according to the man himself. And so, probably not how you should decide if a movie is for the theater or not. And actually, correction, it's 3 episodes. My bad. According to this, it is... And actually now that I think about it, I can see where each episode is. So, first episode would be the Christophsis stuff. Second episode is the Teth stuff. And then the third episode is the Tatooine stuff. Right?
Yeah.
And so, apparently this was to form a trilogy of episodes, standalone episodes, with them being called Castle of Deception, Castle of Doom, and Castle of Salvation. So... hold on. With the standalone episode, The New Padawan, which was developed later in the production as a flashback episode during the series, became the opening sequence of the movie. Okay, so they were gonna make 4 episodes, but because the new Padawan, but they didn't make that full. Like you can tell which ones are the full episodes, and then this is just the flashbacks, right? And so then we also, we get a young Wolf Yularen in this before he gets in charge of the ISB later on.
Oh, the announcer.
The announcer / the Wolf being... Because that is the same actor, but Wolf Yularen himself being the one on the ship for Anakin's 501st. But you might recognize him as being part of the ISB, either in the A New Hope scene where he's on the council table, or he does not actually appear in Andor, but yeah. If I remember, no, he does. He does appear in, doesn't he?
Probably does.
I can't remember. I know he
just.
I know he appears in Rebels. I need to rewatch Andor. Yeah, he does appear in Andor because he makes that announcement about, that's right, about the security stuff.
I just can never not imagine him, like, he just loudly reads the newspaper to, like, his...
It's, well, because they're going for, the World War II...
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm like... Do you think he just reads the newspaper to, like, his troops?
No.
On the ship? No.
No. But it's also not, the character isn't giving us the narration. The narrator is its own character, right? It's just the same voice actor. Yeah. Like, we obviously know it's the same voice actor, but the narrator is meant to be just the narrator.
I want Captain Yularen loudly reading...
Admiral.
Admiral.
Because I think he's already an admiral at this point.
I want to know what, like, the intercom messages sound like on that ship.
Yeah. And so, yeah, and then the music. Kevin Kiner.
Music is good.
The music is standout throughout the series. And we start to get, this is some of the first non-Williams like getting original music, right? For this, like, there's still obviously a lot of John Williams in here, but we also get original music that's not Williams, and it's Kevin Kiner, and it's fantastic. And Kevin Kiner sticks around with the Star Wars family for music for a lot of things. Like he's done Rebels, which once again has some really great stuff. He did Tales of the Jedi, The Bad Batch. So like this is the guy. Like this is who you get for a lot of the programs that aren't John Williams music. Like, and it makes sense because this is a guy who this isn't his first time in sci-fi music wise. Oh, he also did Ahsoka music as well. So, like, this is your guy for non-Williams music. And I'm surprised they haven't tried to get him for a live-action movie yet. But maybe that will change with the projects that are on the way. Because I think Kevin Kiner's earned it, honestly. After we've
so going back to like my rewatching of this film,
yeah,
man, I love the little battle droid, like the interaction between they're like fighting the
this is the start of the goofification of the battle droids, really. Because like up to this point the battle droids have been kind of, they didn't really talk much in most things. Revenge of the Sith started the idea of them talking more.
Phantom Menace does have
halt, where are you taking them? To Coruscant. Coruscant, that doesn't compute. Wait, you're under arrest. Yeah, we've got that. But like for the most part, like Attack the Clones, they don't really talk. They just kill. And then Revenge of the Sith, they talk a little, but not really. They kind of go back to just kill mode. Like Phantom, and then the non-canon Clone Wars show, the Gindi one, which was more of a mini series, but the Gindi one, they don't talk at all either, really. And that one, and they try to make them more intimidating in that one. The clones also very rarely are people in that show as well. They don't really talk much either in that. Whereas this show really changes a lot of things. It gives us the long hair Anakin a little sooner, which is confirmed in Brotherhood as happening because he starts to have that shaggy hair they talk about at the end of the book. Whereas Obi-Wan's kind of started to clean cut a little more. Not as much. Like he's still like they joke. They're like, "Hey, your hair's grown pretty long. You should cut it." And so he's like, "Oh yeah, I should." Meanwhile, Anakin decides to do the exact same thing.
What I'm talking about,
battle droids though,
is the part where he's like, "Fire at this sector," and just lists off a bunch of numbers, and he's like, 7, 6, what? There, shoot. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Shoot right there.
Yeah, and so like we really get the goofification of the battle droids exemplified in this, and it kind of becomes the standard for what the battle droids are like.
Yeah.
Throughout the rest of the
when
media.
They're not firing at you en masse.
Yeah. Even when they are firing at you, they'll be like, "Oh, well, you know, I guess we're safe." And then the Jedi show up. "Oh, never mind." Like with Battletails, like we had moments like that in Battletails. But of course, this is after the precedent has been set. Like this was 2008, and so the precedent has now been set of that's how we view battle droids in Star Wars. Also, whereas the clones actually get character development, which is kind of the interesting dynamic of that change as well. Because whereas the battle droids get the goofification, the clones get characterization. Because like once again, if we go to the Gindi cartoon, which is not canon. And we'll maybe, if we get through all the canon material one day, maybe we'll do a Legends rap on some stuff if you're still up for being in the show when we're in our 60s. But no. But like the Gendy stuff, once again, the clones don't talk. They're just like, special ops who come in and shoot and kill. That's it. Or die. And whereas this, once again, is like, no, these are characters. They are people.
Yeah.
We start to have names for them rather than just numbers, because even in the Gendy one, it's you go by their ARC Trooper number, whatever. But in this one, you go Commander Cody, Captain Rex. They get names, and that might have been one of the better decisions. Like that might. Whereas I think the goofification of the battle droids, maybe it could have been toned down, but it is also a kid show, and it's Star Wars. It's for kids.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to complain about it at the end of the day, really. Like, I'm going to mention it, but I'm not going to be like, that ruins it. Whereas I think the making the clones characters actually elevates it. And it gives us a reason to care about this war a little more. Especially since they're going to give us a 7-season TV show from it. For a 3-year war.
So, another thing that I noticed, and I didn't know. I think I saw Ventress once from like the Gendy cartoons.
Because that's where she was introduced.
Yeah, in this one, during like her fight with Obi-Wan, I'm like, what is this weird, fucking
like semi-sexual
dialogue going on here?
Well, Star Wars, the Force is sexual inherently. Okay.
Okay.
If there's anything we're learning with the High Republic content, the Force is just inherently sexual. And
it is.
And you haven't watched The Acolyte yet, but I'm gonna say it does not beat those allegations. Okay. It actually really digs into those even more.
Like, because the dialogue between Obi-Wan and Ventress during their fight, at first I was like, you know what? Maybe this is just one of those things where I'm reading too much into it, because I like Ventress. I like it when evil sword women say evil sword women things. And then I stopped for a moment. I was like, no, it's not me. It's just written
this
exactly
is the dialogue.
Like
the dialogue is exactly like it's the enemies to lovers, except they never reach the lovers stage. We're gonna flirt while we fight, but we never actually get together.
Also, like, Anakin, later on, this is on a different thing, where Ahsoka and Anakin, people asking Anakin of all people to go to Tatooine, and Anakin has the same reaction as I did. He's like, you want me to go to Tatooine.
To talk to Jabba.
To talk to Jabba.
You know, the Hutts, the people who enslaved me and my mom.
And they go,
Yep. And then Ahsoka's like, hey, you want to unpack that trauma?
And he's like, no.
And then we get the Tusken Raider noise in the background afterwards to remind us of the awful, awful thing Anakin did.
Yep.
The last time he was here.
Anakin, no, I don't want to talk about the slaughter of those people.
Anakin is Cartho Nasi. I don't want to talk about it.
Down you go.
Down you go.
Don't make me do it, Dustle.
Oh, I have to do it on a different chat. There it is. Down you go. I don't want to talk about it.
Also, we talked about this as well last night after I got done watching it. I was like, yeah, it's weird how Anakin checks for his temperature with his cyborg
Yes,
hand.
I said we were going to talk about that. Yeah. Hold on. Let me see if... Because I did not look into it. I should have.
I'm like, because it's his right hand that gets cut off.
Yes. Hold on. No, I think it's his...
Is it his right or his left?
I think it's his, Oh, it was his right. Yeah, because... Yeah. Yep. Prequel memes has a joke about it too. Master, I think the little guy is sick. He's burning up with a fever. Checks temperature with glove prosthetic hand.
Yep.
Everything checks out here. Um. Oh my god, the first comment from 4 years ago. It says, you know when you want to show that you care about something, when you do not, in fact, care about that something, that's what Anakin is doing right now.
Yeah.
I did read, yeah, I mean, somebody says, I mean, the Force, Luke's hand could feel sensations, and Anakin was always a tinkerer, so, and this is what I mentioned last night, so for all you know, he has a built-in thermometer for when he makes tea for Padme or something, yeah. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's, like, a thermometer or something built in, I don't know. But it is funny that even 4 years ago, this was a...
Yeah.
Gotta love when Reddit, when you find... You feel validated by Reddit in this case.
Bit, yeah. It's just funny to think that he agrees with that. Because, like, that room is cold because it's in the bottom of the temple.
Mm-hmm.
At first I was like, oh, maybe it's on Tatooine where, like, the sun is out. So maybe that's why. And it's like, no.
So let's kind of wrap things up here.
Yeah.
Because I think we've discussed really all we want to talk about this for the most part. Is there anything else before I do get us to our scores?
Sidious, I don't know what the fuck you thought was gonna happen with this one.
This is a case of
Actually, I'll say
I mean,
this.
it's the
Ventress fucks up Dooku's plan pretty bad when she tells them that Rhoda is dead.
Well, really, the one who fucks it up the most is Zero.
Mm-hmm.
Which we didn't even get to. We didn't even talk about Zero. Let's talk about Zero. I love the Padme little side quest and how it connects, and I talked about this. I still agree with myself from 4 years ago. I love the design of Zero's palace, the colors and it's like, how do we give a Hutt a palace on Coruscant? We make it like a jazz club.
Yeah,
we give.
I remember, like, because Andrew came home about the time that I was, like, watching through that, and I'm like, man, I love the fact that sleazy city music number 9 is playing in the background.
Well, it's like a jazz club, right? It's.
I know, except it's like the same one that I've heard over and over again. Yeah.
I think it's original though. Like, it's Kevin Kiner's music still, but like, yeah, you probably have heard it though from other, like, it's that style. Mm-hmm. Is really what it is. It's that sleazy jazz that works really well in this case.
I've been to this exact place in other movies and, like, video games and stuff.
And so, I really like the idea of the design for Zero and his palace and the way it works, and our introduction to Zero as no nonsense, like, willing to, like, kill people just for entertainment, even if it's just a droid, and it's just like, you have failed me for the last time.
You failed me for the first and the last time.
Which is
10 years.
You had done so well up to this point, but I'm no nonsense, so off to kill you we go. And it's just like, and then the no.
Oh man,
I loved it. It's a great intro to the character, and then of course, Zero fumbles the bag.
It's like, all you had to do was keep your fucking mouth shut. You would have been home free.
Really, you should make sure people aren't in your room when you're on phone calls.
Yeah.
That's really the lesson here. Is like, if you're having a private phone call that you don't want people to hear, make sure no one's in there.
Mm-hmm. Also, I will put some respect on Rex's name after, like, the clones, like, Ventress is coming in, and he's playing dead.
Rex should have died like 3 times over in this movie.
He's like, he takes a couple of shots at Ventress. I'm like, I respect the attitude, but what you just did is another war crime.
I didn't even think think of that part.
Yeah, pretending to be injured is called malingering, and that is another war crime.
Oh, the Republic all about their war crimes.
Don't worry, the Separatists execute civilians as their standard protocol, so don't feel too bad about it.
Yeah.
Also, Ventress kidnapped a baby from gangsters, but not for good reasons.
Also, let's remember. Also, the Republic's not going to be charged for these war crimes because it's not going to be an entity at the end of the war.
So it doesn't matter anyway.
And usually, the winner of
Yeah,
wars don't get tried for the war crimes, anyways.
Yeah,
They get away with it.
I mean, they won.
They won, and then they no longer existed. So.
You know.
And the Separatists immediately no longer existed, so they also could not be charged for their war crimes.
Mm-hmm. Anakin wiped them out in one night.
Or at least the leaders.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the planets and the government still existed, but not as a separatist government. So nobody to charge.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
Hello there.
hey, you're just catching us as we're actually about to give our final score.
I do remember that I did see this as a child back in the day.
Did it hold up?
I think the problem is I got older, so I started noticing things. I remember I liked it a lot back in the day. And I think partly because I went into this with my, like, review brain instead of, like, I'm just gonna watch this and see
Yeah,
how
instead
it
of your enjoyment brain, it was your review brain.
Mm-hmm.
Since you had already seen it, I guess was why.
Yeah.
Whereas I assume with the Acolyte, you're going to go in with not the review brain.
Yeah, I'm gonna go in and see what happens.
Yeah. Obviously, you'll still be eventually reviewing it, but your first viewing is going to be...
Everyone is very angled in this movie.
Yeah, we talked about that. We talked about that. Yeah, it's just the computer design. Like, it's just the program they were using. It works to a degree. I like the Rebels design a little more.
I will say one of the moments where I'm like, man, Rex, you're doing your best, pal, is when Anakin wants to go back and help him, and Ahsoka's like, hey, we can't really do that, and he's like, okay, well, I should let them know.
And Rex is like, nah, you're good.
Don't worry, we'll handle it.
You follow the mission protocols.
Like, that is... I know, like, later on it'll become a thing of, like, clones, good soldier, follow orders type deal, but this is one of the ones where I'm like, good soldier, Rex.
Yeah. It's also like, Rex...
And Anakin, like...
Like, Rex thinks he could die here, but he's, like, willing to do it. He's like, nah, you're good.
And Anakin being like, hey, sorry, I can't help you. I'm like, well, at least you're being honest.
Yeah. I'll let you give your number first, because I have to think of mine, because the last time I scored this for the podcast was before it was a podcast. It was for Season 1 of Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. And we were using a 5-star system. Now we do out of 10. So I have to rethink my number.
I will say, for all of its many flaws and all of the issues that it has, the child in me is winning out over the adult. I will give it an 8.
Wow. Okay.
Which, considering something got one of the fucking things got a 6 earlier today.
I mean, and we're all over the board today.
Yeah. For what it is and the time that it came out, I understand. Like, we are... Let's see, 2008, it's 2024. People who were born that year are probably entering and or leaving high school. This is how much time has passed.
18. Yeah, they'd be 16. It's 16 years old.
8 out of 10. That's my final score.
And like I watched this like man, yeah, like, and that would be almost about the like. I would have been finishing middle school when this came out. So, like, it's crazy to think about that. And then, like, watching the show throughout high school. Which we'll get into that. We'll get into the show. Because, not next week, but as we go through the rest of the season of the podcast.
I was 9 when that came out.
And so I would probably give it a 7.5.
Hmm.
Lower than you, because I think it could have been better,
Hmm.
even for the time. But I'm also like, as what it is good. Like, it's not terrible. It passes. It does what it needs to. It got everybody hyped for the show, and it introduced like the concepts of the show in a very easy package. 2 hours. Easiest way you could have introduced everything. So, yeah, that's our thoughts on all of these things that start the Clone Wars, like the actual proper Clone Wars era.
Hmm.
Um,
Obi-Wan and Yoda cause a clerical error and get Anakin assigned to Padawan.
I mean, wasn't a clerical error; it was on purpose.
Yeah, they caused as far they caused a clerical error. They accidentally misfiled.
But yeah,
And by that I mean straight up lied to Anakin.
well, because it's a test of Anakin's. Like, it's going to be a test. The test isn't whether or not he'll accept the Padawan; it's whether or not he can let go when the time comes.
Mm-hmm.
And we will discuss that when we get to that point, because we will get to that point in the show. But for now, just leave that thought up in the air of whether or not you think he passed that test or not. But yeah, thank you all for watching today's episode of Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. I've been your host, Caleb. Be sure to like, comment, follow, subscribe to us. You can find us at Escape Reality Films on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and TikTok. You can also show your support for us by joining our Patreon, which is at Escape Reality Films. Shout out to Jennifer Brantley.
Yo.
There you can watch our YouTube content before it's publicly available. Also be sure to check out our Discord, which is also linked wherever you are watching, so you can become a part of our community. You can also find me on Twitter at EscapeReality94 and Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Caleb.Lockwood. You got anything for us, Seth?
Well, first off, you forgot one of our other Patreon buddies.
Nope.
No?
No, they're not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind then. So, anyway, moving on. You can catch just some friends of ours over on YouTube every Sunday from 5 to 7 Central Standard Time at Trials of Naboo at the Steam Dungeon.
There we go.
Boy, oh boy. They just got done essentially in a dungeon that forced them to reenact the Iliad with candy people.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a cool concept. As a guy who loves mythology, it was fun seeing them go through it and not saying shit to them about it.
So yeah, so go check out our friends at Steam_Dungeon on YouTube, and the show is Trials of Naboo.
Yeah.
Once again, thank you all for watching. Join us next week as we get the next High Republic short story chapter in Tales from the Occlusion Zone, Family Ties. I have spoken.
Y'all be safe out there.